K.T.E. Put it together and what do you get? A wrestling podcast unlike any other. Hello, I'm the T. That's my K. And today we bring you the Wrestling Podcast Edition, number 2, a.k.a. the edition where Connor spills my coffee. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. And, we're not technically a mystery group, but, I just decided to throw his coffee on the floor. It's fine.
I had all but 2 sips, and that was...
Yeah, well, it was the greatest 2 sips of your life.
Today, we asked you last week what your favorite wrestling championships were. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Connor, favorite wrestling championships in regards to experiences or just design?
If we're going just strictly WWE, one of my all-time favorite championships is the World Tag Team Championships from 2005 up until 2010, I think. That one, just hands down, is one of my all-time favorite titles. World title-wise, probably the Big Gold. It's just a classic championship. You can't go wrong with it. I do like the new Big Gold World title. I kind of wish they would have gone to the old one and put the WWE logo up top, but, we got to shove the big WWE in your face.
Corporate branding!
But, yeah, those are probably my top titles in history, so. Probably old school, we're going to have to go like I said last week, the Winged Eagle. That one's always pretty. Or you have the one that Stone Cold got handed after WrestleMania against Shawn. That one was pretty solid. The other Big Gold or Big Winged Eagle title, version 2 or whatever they called it. So
there's a specific name for it, but a lot of times they just call it the Attitude Eagle or the Big Eagle, and then the original one's the Winged Eagle.
Oh yeah. What are yours, Tyler?
Well, a couple of mine. You mentioned the Big Gold. The Big Gold is when I think wrestling and I think prestige, I just think the Big Gold belt from WCW and even WWE's edition going on to 2013 when they retired it. The Big Gold belt, you think of UFC, you think of New Japan, it's all one big gold plate, and it looks like a prestigious championship title. To me, that's what the Big Gold belt represented, was just the peak and pristineness of wrestling.
I saw a video the other day, and it was the history of the Big Gold. You ever notice how it used to shrink? You ever notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, in 2005, it was this big championship. You watched Batista holding up. It was this big championship. Then when Cena had it, it like shrunk. It's like, why are we shrinking the title?
My leading theory is because they wanted it to look, Cena to look bigger because of it.
That's probably fair.
But you look at when Big Show was holding it circa 2012, it looked like it was tiny.
Yeah, I mean, well, Big Show's 7 feet, 800 pounds, but
way more tiny than it should be.
I mean, I guess between him and Henry, then going back to that title, like Mark Henry, he had the ECW title.
Right.
That thing was small.
Well, there's even rumors that ECW title wasn't even the real gold. It was just the replica.
Yeah, well, it makes sense.
Point.
Somebody probably stole it and said, "Oh, this is mine now."
But even like the action figures, I don't know how many action figures you had over time to time.
I never really did the action figures things. I always did the belts and then like DVDs and that kind of stuff. I never actually did the action figures. My cousin actually did the action figures, which was pretty fun.
But even in the action figures, the Big Gold belt was way smaller than the spinner was.
Really?
It was,
okay.
Yeah. Because it could fit comfortably on Evan Bourne in my action figures. But when I tried to put it, exactly, yeah. But when I tried to put it on someone like, I don't know, even as large as like Kane, it wouldn't even fit, or it would barely fit.
Right, and they just never. They always made them the same length, no matter who the wrestler was. You could never get the exact fit for said like Kane or Big Show or as the action figures,
yeah.
But.
And when they even updated the titles on the action figures to where it became snap like these, these are, they uniformed it. They made them all the same size.
And this one, you pointed this one. This one's not a bad championship. I like the concept of it. It's just why I obviously it's WWE, but why are we just making the Universal Championship the exact same. You had the opportunity to give a whole new championship
Mhm.
and you put it on a red strap and called it the Universal Championship. Like, make a different title. Let's not put the big WWE logo on it.
At the very least, with the new World Heavyweight Championship, it looks way different than this title
Yeah,
does.
and that's why I like the new big gold world title. Roman's Universal Championship or Undisputed Championship, whatever they called it. It's literally they just painted some mustard on it and said, "Here you go, we're gonna give you a new title." It's like we could have had a dope title made for that moment, but what you gonna do?
Yeah, I know a lot of people haven't been happy with the titles in WWE for a very long time.
I think we talked about this last week. It's like copying pasting. Dude, can I borrow your homework? Okay. Just don't do the same thing. Okay. Copy, paste, change a little bit. There you go.
Well, and I know everyone was so upset with the tag titles when they went from the unified design to
To
this, the
those.
copper belt.
I think
And
at first everybody was okay with them, and then it kind of over time it just
well, these were stuck for what, 12 years? 'Cause
2018?
Because
Whenever
the
they did
Usos had it WrestleMania 29.
whenever they did the brand split and Balor won the
Oh, I'm
Universal.
just talking about this design period because the Raw and the
Oh,
SmackDown titles were
2010 because it was the Hart Dynasty. Bret Hart came out with the new
correct.
title.
That was the when it showed up, but I'm talking about when it was discontinued. Was it WrestleMania last year? Because Damian Priest and the Judgment Day were Raw Tag Champions
Okay,
and
yep,
SmackDown.
yeah,
So
yeah. They
and then
okay.
Theory and
They
Waller brought it
split.
down, and
Yep,
then
at
Truth.
Mania
Yeah.
last year. Okay, I'm there. We go. Yeah, Mania last year they did the tag. They did the ladder match.
So I guess at that point, 14 years,
Yeah,
14 years that design was there, and they had
yeah.
an opportunity to do something new and unique, and all they did was for SmackDown, did the old tag team titles.
Which are beautiful championships. Back, I
They are.
love those old school looks. The Raw ones.
They're just like the World Heavyweight title, but circular.
Yeah, it's like also with the women's championships. Uh, why are we doing it the exact same as the men? I'm fine with the white straps. That's no problem.
Hmm.
Why are we making it look just like the men's?
The point with that is they want to be seen as equal together, which
I guess that makes sense, but it's still just give them a little bit more of a unique look. It's like, yeah, okay, if we're trying to incorporate the women more than we did 30 years ago, give them something different. Don't be like, hey, you're equal, but you're the same. Like, I just one thing that kind of irks me, but
yeah, at the very least, when they brought in the SmackDown and the Raw Women's Championship, but before they entered the SmackDown variant, it was a white strap and it was a red back, and
yep,
the trimmings were all kind of light gold. It looked the same as far as the general
yeah,
outline and look, but there was enough differentiation there. Literally, the U.S. and the IC is just here's a white strap, and
yeah,
that's it.
pretty much. Yeah, we could spend all day talking about championships, man. Going from TNA, ECW, AEW, Ring of Honor, they all have their beautiful championships. But like I said, for all time, in my opinion, big gold.
Yeah, there are some lesser known championships that I would probably get a lot of hate for liking, but I'm going to say it anyway. I maybe not this specific outline and design as the copper,
hmm
but I love the Spartan look. I'm a big fan of that look.
I like the Spartan look, like we talked about last week. The copper look, it could have been different, but the Spartan look will always be one of my favorite looks, just because it's cool. Like you don't see that. I mean, it's showing that they're unified. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Which if I had the forethought, I would have brought out the gold variant today. But that might make a showcase on the mantle here before too long.
yeah, just let me help spill another cup of coffee.
But I love that. Elijah has the purple cruiserweight belt,
I like that one.
which I love it because it's so unique.
Yep.
I have not seen a single championship look like that in wrestling.
I haven't either, but you also have to look at there have always been those custom championships that we've grown to, like Edge, and he had his idea, but they went like, no, we like the spinner look, so Edge kind of got screwed with that.
Mm-hmm.
When they brought out the undisputed title, when Jericho and had the two titles, and they finally unified it to one, that was a beautiful championship for its time. Obviously, things grow out of time in the industry, so. When Cena won, they were like, "Hey, Cena, you're gonna get a title. Create it how you want." Obviously, we got the spinner belt, which is also a beautiful championship.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites, just because it's so fun. You just spin it around, and it just goes for hours.
But
um,
I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I will safely say I think the spinner belt went on way too long.
I 100% agree with that because I don't like The Rock. We didn't need to win it, but he was right. The prestigious championship of the WWE doesn't need to spin or doesn't need to look like a toy. It didn't look right with Triple H. It didn't look like when Orton. Didn't look right when Orton had it. Batista when he won it, it did not look right. So yeah, it was a beautiful championship for its time. If you change it after 2010, maybe going into 2011, give the title a new look.
I could
But
see that because at that point the brand split was pretty much done and over with. Yeah, they
yeah,
had separate
yeah, they had
brands, but
separate shows, but you had
the world champion was still appearing on Raw. And
yeah.
yeah,
So why didn't we just change the title many years ago? But you also have to think about it this way: how many of the titles did they sell?
right. I'm
And
sure because Cena was the top guy.
you got
He was always
Cena,
had the belt.
you had Cena as the top guy. You had fans who loved that title. They were like, "Oh, we're just gonna keep buying." How many titles did they actually sell for them to keep that look? Is is my guess. Um, but we don't know that number. I don't know if we'll ever know that number.
Right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, I do agree. It did go on a lot longer than it should have.
Yeah, it was a little depressing because they treated the world heavyweight title like an afterthought in those latter years, despite the fact that it's the better looking belt. To me, that always felt like it was the top championship,
Hmm.
even if it wasn't probably at 2010.
Yep. And then obviously we got The Rock brought out the one for 2013, which looked good.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that changing that look, you could have done that a couple years earlier because then going into the 2014 when they did the WWE Network, they changed the logo to WWE to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they brought out this one. You didn't get that long of a title with that. You didn't get that long of a history with that title.
The Rock one,
With the Rock
the
one.
scratch logo.
Yeah, you didn't get a long history with that. Had you brought the scratch one out probably 2011, going into 2011, maybe you get a longer list of people because the only people that actually had that title, if I remember correctly, were Cena, uh, Daniel Bryan, and Randy Orton that
So
had the scratch logo. Brock was the last one to have it
yeah.
because then they unified it to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So you had The Rock, and then Cena beat him, and then Bryan beat him, and then Orton cashed it in, and then at that point, Bryan and Orton went back and forth, and then Orton beat Cena to unify, and
Right.
then Cena won it after Bryan
Had to relinquish.
hmm
Yeah.
and then at that point, Brock won it. So
Yeah, so then they were like, Brock said, I'm not carrying two belts. He didn't carry the belts anyways.
yeah,
Paul did, but then they brought us that
it was just a
belt.
shade under 2 years, probably like
Yeah.
a year and a half. The undisputed title at least was 02 to 05.
Yeah, it had a long history of wrestlers that held that title and
Because in
uh
02 alone, there was plenty of title switches from Hogan to Taker to Rock to
yep,
so.
Brock, Kurt Angle and Brock were going back and forth with it and
hmm
Big Show out of nowhere got one and
Yeah,
I like Big Show though, but
but yeah, I think I would agree with that sentiment. But I mean, as far as our titles go now, there's some good looking ones.
there's definitely some good looking ones. There's also some really bad ones, and that's just I think anywhere you go, there's going to be a bad looking title. And it's the unfortunate part. I think one of my all time favorite ones, and this is going outside of WWE, is the original first TNA world title.
Oh yeah.
That one, hands down, is my favorite championship of all time. I just, the way it looks, you can't beat it. Obviously, they had the NWA title, which is a beautiful title, prestigious title.
Hmm.
But for TNA to come into their own and leave NWA kind of stuff,
It
and
was their version of the big gold belt.
exactly, and it was just so the even the tag titles and the X Division title, those all three of those titles in TNA looked amazing. I don't know how TNA made those titles look so good, but y'all did something right.
And even to this day, TNA just had their Genesis pay per view on Sunday. Even to this day, their titles don't look bad. I would say I don't love their titles right now, but they look way better than a lot of WWE's got
I
right now.
haven't watched TNA in a very, very long time, but I've actually seen a lot of clips over the last probably 10 years. When they did the Global Force stuff, those looked awful.
Oh yeah,
I
the
don't know
Wraith.
who ran Global Force. Y'all need to be done because, like, that's a bad title. Like, but no, like you said, TNA even now, like when they brought back the TNA name,
Hmm.
um, and they got those titles distributed to the champions. Those they're very, very beautiful championships. I even like the tag titles in TNA. The
The red
Hardy.
strap.
Oh yeah, those
Hmm.
are so pretty. The red strap looks so good. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I'd say we all got our special little titles that we enjoy from time to time. It's even if they're kind of bad like that. There's because you get so many people online that hate on the spinner belt just because they might be a little older and from the Attitude Era, so they thought, oh, we had it so good. And then the people who are just coming into wrestling fans in the early thousands,
yeah.
they look at the spinner belt and they go, oh, that was my childhood. It was so good because
Right. And that
Elijah's
was
like that.
yeah, well that was roughly my childhood. I mean, yeah, I vividly remember the early 2000s, but like I said, 2000 like I said last week, 2007 was when I really caught on and man, that spinner belt just every week you see it. I liked it before they stuck it. When they actually did spin, I
Mm.
liked that. When they actually stuck it, it was like they just put they just got it stuck there. It's like, come on, man. I liked when it spun and seen it come out and it wailed around and
You know it's a good design though when it transcends time because
oh yeah,
like we were
that's
talking
why.
about with the good the big gold belt, it was from the 80s up until 2013
Yeah,
in some form.
yeah. Whether it be WCW or I don't know who else had it, but then obviously WWE has it, and obviously you have people that do like the backyard wrestlings. They have their own big gold,
Right.
but they just put their name on it, and instead of it saying WWE, they'll put I don't know. There's a group on YouTube called GTS Wrestling. They have one. They had one. I haven't watched that in
Hmm.
years, but they had one, and it said GTS World Heavyweight Championship. And it was beautiful just because it had their name on it. But
Yeah, and the winged eagle in some variation, whether it's the wing or the big, it's
yeah,
it's transcended the eras, if you will.
yep. It shows the different eras of that we've been a part of, and we've been a part of a lot. I mean, between championships and general managers, and you had the computer era as the GM, the anonymous Raw general manager era, and you had the Michael Adam Lee era and the John Laurinaitis, and but it just shows all the championships just show a different kind of era we lived in. And, but
Yeah.
I'm maybe we'll see some changes in the coming years with WWE titles, but at the moment we're kind of got what we got, and I think the best one now was probably the big gold they've got. But we'll see what happens in a couple of years. I have a feeling at some point they'll either introduce another title or we'll do a title. Somebody will be like, oh, I don't like this title, like Daniel Bryan. Drop it in and bring out
The Eco
the
Warrior
Eco
one. Uh-huh.
Warrior and But
It is nice to see the Winged Eagle back, even if it's just for a short time.
I really, really wish they would just keep it just because it's just the nostalgic piece. But obviously, WWE has merchandise they sell. I'm sure they sold hundreds of the ones that Cody has, and so you got to look at the sales aspect of it. So I don't blame them for.
Well, and I'll interject here because the argument for this was because it's got your corporate branding, and if you give this to teams across the globe, they can immediately recognize. But I would argue they're doing a lot of the Fanatics belts.
Yeah.
They've got that with the Fanatics belt. If you go to, let's say, the national champions, spoiler, Ohio State, and you give them a belt, it's the WWE Ohio State belt, and you recognize, oh, hey, that's a WWE belt that's
Right.
branded
Like,
as Ohio State.
or like you said, the Fanatic stuff, they actually have their own championship now. Like the Bears
Yeah, that's
have.
what I'm saying,
I'm a Bears fan. The Bears have one. All the NFL teams have one. NBA, I think the MLB does, but like
NHL too.
NHL, all these other sports are gaining traction with WWE that they have their own titles now.
Exactly, and that's why I would argue there's less of a need for something like this than there was in the previous years because you've already got a merchandise trophy in the form of those championships. Yep. But I don't know. We'll see what happens the Rumble because I think the ending of that ladder match may tell us which title sticks around.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, knowing what I've seen previous years, they'll just keep it. But they could surprise us. Triple H, it's a one-time thing, but fans are probably like, no.
They're gauging interest, with Kevin Owens keeping it around.
Right, and if they put the title back on the shop, it sells money. It's like, man, we'll see, but.
Always an interesting debate. I know we had the comment for last week, but if you feel free to comment down which your favorite championships below, let us know. But as far as KO stands, we're going to go to Connor and his SmackDown review. Let us know what's going on in the Connor's SmackDown Lowdown.
Well, my lowdown for the week is that first off, we kind of talked about this maybe last week. The Saturday Night Main Event thing, we don't really need it. There's no point. Obviously, if you haven't watched SmackDown, we'll go ahead and get caught up. But we have a contract signing Saturday Night Main Event between Kevin Owens and Cody because they can't stop beating the crap out of each other. So Nick Aldis said, you know what? I'm gonna get Shawn Michaels to do this. But it's like, okay, anyways, the Saturday Night Main Event thing is going to be the one thing that just bugs me because we have the Rumble a week from Saturday, and we have a pay-per-view before. Okay, I'm sorry, not a pay-per-view. It's on television. Why is it before the Rumble? Why wasn't it last week? Or I don't know, why isn't it 3 weeks after the Rumble? Like, I don't know. But, so you have those two still going at it. We'll see what happens to the Rumble with those. The rest of the show didn't look too bad. We had a couple solid matches. Jimmy and Carmelo had a good match. You had KO go against Rey Mysterio, which obviously Rey Mysterio is from. I think he's from California.
San Diego.
I think that's where they were at. So he got to go the homecoming thing. So that's why. KO came out and they got into it, and the women's tag champs ended up winning. Again, those championships take those championships away, put those two in the main event, or you could. Naomi is a main eventer, but she could also be a mid card. Give her a shot at the United States Championship.
You did mention that they should take them down to NXT, and that's exactly what they're doing next Tuesday. Is they're going to have an NXT title.
Title match.
It's an NXT title match, but it's the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions.
Oh, so we may get those titles back down there, and they stay there, or I don't know, bring back the NXT women tag titles.
They probably won't do that.
But you just have those titles, whatever. And then obviously there was a lot that happened, but the biggest was Tiffany versus Bayley, and that match was pretty solid. I think Tiffany proved herself. Um, Now obviously there was some interference there with somebody on the side, but because Bailey couldn't focus, but overall I thought it was a I'm still gonna stick with a 6.5. I might bump it to a 7. I'm not gonna go up there just yet because, like I said, there's still so many holes we talked about. There's still so many holes we gotta fill going into Rumble. Like we have one woman who's announced that she's in the Rumble match. Are we doing a women's Rumble, or is this gonna be the Rumble of surprises for the women? Because with Nia being the only one, you got the rest of the women's division. You have somebody who showed up the first night on Raw, the Raw debut.
Mm.
You have Nikki Bella. You've got AJ potentially. You got all these returns that can happen. So is that why they're not talking about the women's Rumble much? I mean, we'll just have to see next Saturday. Obviously this Saturday is Saturday night. But we'll just have to see next week on Rumble Saturday.
Curious as to what you think, because they mentioned for the contract signing that there was an addendum. That's why he needed them to get signed, was because he was making a little change, an addendum, if you will. What do you think that is?
Are we gonna get a little bit of a return from a certain Viper, maybe?
Yeah, you
And
think?
and he might play a part in a special guest role.
Right?
Uh,
Enforcer or referee or something like
I
that?
mean, yeah, there's not really referees, but there's refs outside. But like
Mm-hmm.
maybe Randy comes back and says, "I'm gonna decide who wins," because then that could set up the potential Cody and Randy things. Randy can hold his arm up, bam, low blow, there we go. But
Right,
or
right.
surprise RKO out of nowhere, and but. I don't know, man. I'm ready for Rumble.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
so ready for Rumble. We always talk. We've talked about this for years. It's every time before the big pay-per-views. It's just such a bad time because
Yeah.
you have to build up. Obviously, they have to do the build up, but I just want the Rumble. I'm so ready.
Well, yeah, and at this point, it's technically been 2 months since we've had a pay per view, because the last one would have been Saturday night's main event,
Yeah.
and that was in December.
Well, you also have to think. Well, pay per view wise, you have to look back to November.
Well, yeah, for Survivor
But
Series, if you're considering an official
but
pay
yeah,
per
if you
view. But
right.
I guess you could consider the Netflix episode a pay per view, but it didn't have enough matches to
The war,
warrant
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It, I mean, you could consider the women's world title match, the tribal combat, and
Hmm.
Punk versus Rollins, and then the special guest appearances by The Rock and John Cena. But there weren't enough matches to really consider that pay per view. Saturday night's main event in December had more stacked matches. That felt like an actual pay per view.
And again, not I don't care about the Saturday night main event. I like the idea of having a Saturday night. I do. My problem is you're a week before one of the biggest pay per views in history. Not in history, but just the one of the big four pay per views. Why are we putting something in front of that? Why isn't it just a random Saturday before Bad Blood or whatever the next one of those not big pay per views
Hmm.
are? Because I don't even know half the names this year. What's all coming back pay per view wise, or if they're surprising us with a new one, or like names of pay per views. Um, but why are we having one before the Rumble? It makes no sense. That's just something I'm not okay with. I don't agree with the decision. Obviously, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Um, but yeah, it's just that's the one downside about my thought process on that.
And now I think a couple of reasons why it does kind of work is because Triple H has smaller shows.
Yeah.
Vince would always try to pack with as many people as possible, and with the Triple H show, you can get all the people who probably aren't gonna be on the Rumble show. Because right now we've only got 3 matches announced for the Rumble.
Yeah.
The two Rumble matches and the ladder match.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else they're looking to add to the card, but
You could you could probably do Chelsea versus Mi Chin for the U.S. title. You could probably do that one. Just because it's a filler match, not a filler match, but it's the rematch. or not rematch,
It'd be the
but
second time they fought, though.
yeah, well, you got to build up the story somehow. When you started it,
It's their second
now,
rematch. At least they could
well,
get
no, no,
us.
the second time they fought, they wasn't for the title though, was it?
It was for the title,
Was it?
yeah. Uh huh.
I thought it was just them going against each other.
No, it was last
But
week.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, then that'd be their third time going against each other for the title. But guess who's interfered both times?
that's fair.
So
That's fair.
you
You
could
could add
do
a stipulation to
exactly.
it.
We could make this Royal Rumble a big Royal Rumble by having surprises in the women's match. Some rumors going around because there's obviously, if nobody's heard, there's a crossover happening between TNA and WWE, which we never in our lifetime never thought was going to happen.
Mm-mm.
There's a rumor circulating that the men's Rumble is going to have tons of TNA talent, which will be great for the TNA brand
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think a lot of people know TNA. I hardly know anybody. I know the Hardys are back there. Obviously, Joe Henry was on NXT for a little bit, so I know there are some superstars. Dolph Ziggler. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, do yourself a favor, everyone. If you've not had the chance to watch what TNA's been doing recently, go out of your way and watch it, even if it's just for one episode. And I'll extend that invitation to you.
yeah,
If you get the chance, it's
okay. I'm gonna have to check it out. I think it's on what, Wednesdays, Thursdays.
Thursdays
Okay,
is
so
their
it's
night.
both Monday Night Raw, NXT. If you guys watch AEW, AEW's Wednesday, then Thursday's TNA, then Friday SmackDown. But okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to throw it on because yeah, I've seen a lot of clips from it and it looks pretty solid.
It's got a very good underground feel to it.
Okay,
I know I complain about AEW's backyard wrestling feel, but TNA, and I think that's why they're working together, but TNA and WWE have a very similar way of presentation. They do. But it's got the extra spice of independent wrestling, if you
right.
will.
Well, like I said, there's a big crossover happening, so Rumble's gonna have some surprises. I hope so. And then you just throw in the filler match with Chelsea and her. They could do an ODQ match. You could do if Piper invades, she automatically loses the title. You can do whatever you want with that. Um, I, maybe you could throw the tag championships on there on
See, that's
SmackDown
that's what I was gonna
because
suggest
you
was
got
machine guns
because
versus
you got the yeah,
DIY.
because the machine guns kind of got screwed, and you got DIY going into this heel mode because obviously they attacked Paulo on Friday.
Hmm.
Paulo ain't do nothing wrong to you guys. Like, why do you gotta attack him? But yeah, throw that match on there. I would love to see that one. I love the Motor City Machine Guns. I loved them when they were TNA. I'm excited they're finally in WWE, on the big time
Hmm.
because obviously it all comes down to yeah, TNA is a big name, but you always have to compete against WWE. So they're finally hitting that top. It's kind of like Tom Brady getting in for Drew Bledsoe, and now Tom Brady his 7 championships later. But yeah, so there's just like I said, my final thoughts on SmackDown. Give it about a 6.85 out of 10. Still a lot of cleanup to do with the transfer portal and the world title match between Owens and Rhodes and who else is gonna announce themselves for both Rumbles because the men's is starting to stack up. The women's again, I think we have one total entrant right now, maybe a couple more, but yeah, I'm super excited, man. Like I said, I'm just ready for the Rumble. That's next week's gonna be a lot about the Rumble, and we'll get to that. But
Connor will never pat himself on the back, so I'm gonna take the time to pat him on the back because SmackDown gave him a few W's. Not only was the main event Tiffany and Bailey, two people that you were talking up all last week. Tiffany showcased what she's capable of,
mhm.
and Bailey looked like a champion.
And I mean that for that to be the main event, I know I said this last week, but we're in a time frame where wrestling for women is so much bigger than it was 30 years ago. I mean, yeah, you had Trish and Lita and all them,
They were
but we're,
exceptions.
right, but we're now in an era where they can main event, and the fact that those two got the main event, I'm stoked for because we need more women's main events. We just do. I'm not discarding the ones that we've had, but we've only had a handful on Raw, SmackDown, and any pay-per-view. Obviously, the women had their own pay-per-view, which wasn't a horrible pay-per-view. You could throw another one, but you could do NXT, Raw, and SmackDown, all women. And now that we got that crossover, you could throw some TNA in there too, kind of thing. Just showcase the women because, like I said, the women are doing so much more sometimes than the men are. They get overshadowed. But at the same time, she's back. Charlotte Flair's coming back. And I know I gave her grief last time, but if you watch that video they showed,
She felt like such a star.
it felt like it's going to be a different look. I don't know if we're getting the Queen look, but something feels a little different. And I'm kind of scared to see what it is, but I'm kind of excited too. And I've never thought I'd say that about Charlotte, but I saw that video, I was like, she's might be like the Hollywood persona. She's doing the styling, profiling, she's jet flying, and she's doing all the stuff her dad threw out for years. Because she was on her jet, she was driving a nice car, and she looked good doing it. So it's like, what's gonna happen? Are we getting a Ric Flair too, or what kind of gimmick are we getting with that? But I am super excited to see when she comes back. Is it Rumble? Is it next Friday? We don't know. But I'm excited to see that. And I never thought I'd say that.
It's 50% WWE's video production because obviously their video production is second to none.
Yeah, absolutely.
They could tell me R-Truth is a main eventer. They could say he's been battle hardened for years, and next week he'll get an opportunity at Gunther because apparently we just give out world title matches. And I might believe it because WWE
That's a
that
Raw
good.
thing we're gonna talk about.
Of course.
Also, R-Truth should have been a world champion many years ago. But
with that said, they made Charlotte Flair look good, and it gives an extra needed shot in the arm to that women's division on SmackDown, especially if you're losing Bayley and potentially Nia. They've not confirmed that she's moving, but
and obviously we won't know when everything's confirmed because they're still doing the transfer portal, which whatever. But yeah, it's a very slim roster over here on SmackDown, and it's the one downside about it because we finally get. I think if I'm being honest, I think Tiffany should do the Cena route throughout the open challenges. I said that with Natalia last week. She should have won one of those championships, gotten the open challenges. There we go. If you throw Tiffany to do that, and then after one of them, have somebody major attack her, and that sets up a feud with her and whoever.
well, see, here's the question though, and this is something we really do need to talk about in consideration of SmackDown. Where is Tiffany's character at? Because if in order for her to do the Cena route, I feel like she's got to be a face, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to make her that heel if everybody's cheering for her, and it's everybody wanted to hate Cena for so many years, but everyone's like we hate Cena, but he still went out there and put on the face persona, and I don't know, it's hard to tell because she's one of those wild cardy characters. I said last week she's got the move set, she's her accomplishments and everything, but you hit it right on the head. Where is the character going? And we need to see more of a character. Because yeah, she can come out and say, "Oh, I'm better than all of you," but then the fans are like, "Oh my God, she's amazing," but she's trying to be a heel. It's like they need to hit on what she's doing. They need to hit on a lot of things that what they're doing. But yeah, so
Especially if you got Charlotte coming in and she's going to be the styling, profiling. It's a weird situation because she might come back and try to do the exact same thing where it's weird because Charlotte for years has been positioned as the heel, and then she was the reluctant face, and fans still didn't want to cheer her simply because she's Flair and she's getting all the opportunities because of who she is. You don't want it to be when she comes back,
Yeah.
she's the heel that everyone wanted her to be, yet people are going to cheer her.
Yeah, and it's just one of the hardest things about all the creative decisions in WWE is because you try to build these characters a certain way, but then the fans go the opposite way with it. It's kind of again, Cena wanted to go heel after that first Rock main event.
Yeah.
He had a I watched an interview he did with Chris. I can't remember his name. It's Chris something.
Van Vliet.
Yeah.
Right?
He had he had a new track, new single. He had a whole new everything, but they shot it down because the fans love Cena so much. It's like, had we gotten that little bit of heel Cena like we did back in 2004, like, oh, that would have been dope. But yeah, the character there's just it's so hard for WWE to build characters if your fans are one sided. Like if the fans love somebody, they're gonna let you know they love somebody. Um, but yeah, it just it's hard for Tiffany to figure out where she wants to go. Because the fans are one way about it right now, and they love her, but she's not supposed to be loved, and it's hard when the fans are like we love Tiffany, and or as like most of the different country fans, hey, we want some Bale. But it's like I said, it's just hard to build that character if your fans are one way and your character's supposed to be the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hate to say that sometimes I feel like I'm on Vince's side about that because he would always try to push characters a certain way and we would be so against it and then we'd all hate him for it. But sometimes in order to tell a coherent story, you got to. Because if you got a heel that everyone respects and cheers for, it's because they do their job so well. Because if you were to turn them face, sometimes their character doesn't work as well. And that may be the case with Tiffany, that she just needs to be a heel because that's who she can play well enough for everyone to love her that way.
And you brought up that's what one thing Vince was good at. He tried so hard. He tried so hard to make Roman the face, and the fans booed the crap out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't deserve that. It wasn't his fault. Vince was just like Roman, 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 Roman. So it got to a point where obviously his character changed, and now he's one of the greatest. I don't know how Tiffany could get there, but we'll see. We'll see as time goes on with this reign, and obviously the fans love her, but she wants to be this heel, and WWE wants her to be a heel. But it's like Nia was the heel, so why don't we just put Tiffany at face, and there we go.
Call it a day,
yeah. Because she ended the reign of Nia and betrayed her, and so that made her a face instantly, according to the fans.
Yeah.
But then she comes out the next week and's like, I'm better than you. Oh my God, you will not beat me. Blah, 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 blah. It's like.
And it's tough, too, because you got people like Bayley, you've got people like Naomi, you've got people like Belair that all need a heel to go against.
Yep.
But at the same time, her story and the fans kind of demand that she's the woman who's been antagonized and pushed under by Nia Jax all this time. But I think the story that they tried to spin last week was because she was a conniving mastermind rather than somebody who was taken advantage of. She was someone who
She was plotting again.
Yeah.
Which you also brought up. This is another storyline going on is who attacked Jade.
Right.
And that's one big star we're missing. I know I gave her a lot of crap, but that's a big star. WWE brought her in for a reason. So now that she's been in action for a couple months, it's like, one, we got that storyline going on, which I think people forgot about. Like, where's that storyline? Like, they hinted at it being Naomi and Belair, but it's like they totally like forgot about it because they just gave Naomi the tag titles. And here you go, you guys are good. It's like, whoa, hold on. Like, there's a storyline here, and it's
now see the rumor. Now see, I'm doing rumor stuff now. Apparently,
still my gimmick, y'all.
the rumor to me is that it's Belair that is the attacker, and I feel like they're kind of hinting at that because if you notice on SmackDown, Belair and Naomi had an interaction last week. this week they mentioned it in a backstage segment. Naomi said something about her hair hitting Naomi, and she's like, "Yeah, I know it was just an accident, but just make sure the hair's up and it doesn't hurt me." So there's kind of like that sly of like, you didn't mean it, but what if it turns out of like,
Yeah.
she attacked Jade because she wanted to be a single star again.
And if that's the case, why I get where I get that, but why keep her as a tag champ if we're gonna just make her a single star anyways? Why don't we just have them lose the tag titles to whoever it was they went against? And they should drop those titles. Then you can have her attack Naomi, and she can come out and be like, "Yep, that was me." Drop the mic and walks away. It's like that would have been a much better idea than giving Naomi a tag title run when she didn't earn that. I mean,
Right.
and I'm all about fairness and getting the opportunity, but you don't get to be a champion just because you walk up to her and say, "Hey, I'm your tag partner." Like that's not how it works. Like, yeah, okay, she needed a partner, but if Bella's so strong,
To her credit, though, to Naomi's credit, what she did do was say that I needed to earn
that's
that,
very true.
and so she at least won the match and felt like that's the time that she could be considered a champion. But with that said, yeah, but Triple H has been guilty of that. Is he'll take a story that's like, okay, we all see where it's going. We all understand that that's probably the end destination of it. But he'll tell a bit of that story, wait 3 weeks, tell a small bit of the story again, wait another 3 weeks, tell a small that it's not a story that's it's not a long-term story. It's a story that's taking a long time to tell.
Yeah, and it's not like you said, it's not the long term storytelling. It's telling story long time.
Yeah.
Reverse that. So,
You tell story long time.
um, but yeah, so like I said, there's just a lot on SmackDown going on that they have to clean up. Like I said, Rumble's up next weekend. I know you guys are gonna head down there. I'm gonna be on my couch in the nice warm house.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't even think about that. Oh, it's
oh
gonna
yeah,
be freezing
oh
cold.
yeah. I'll be nice
Oh.
there. I'll have my blanket on, and I'm off that day, I think, or I get off at 5, so I'll be able to watch it. I'll be sitting on my couch in my blanket, and I'll be bundled up watching it. But
Be like Stewie thinking of a warm place, but for me, it's gonna be like think of a warm place, and it's you on your couch watching the Rumble.
but like I said, so my little lowdowns are we're sitting at a 6.85 out of 10. Clean up everything on SmackDown. Let's get over the KO feud with Rhodes. Because obviously KO went over to Raw and a
Yeah,
little interaction with somebody.
yeah, we'll get into that here real soon.
But because then we can finally get our Cody versus Orton feud started if Orton comes back. Get that started for WrestleMania. Obviously, rumors are rumors. Cena's gonna go against Rhodes. He's gonna go against Gunther. Let him get every single title this year because he needs to before he retires. But I love Cena. Can't wait to watch more of his retirement tour this year. It's gonna be one of the saddest days in history when he retires, but it's okay. Because your childhood and some of the movies he's made and just obviously, he's gonna be there, but he won't ever wrestle again. And,
Right. He may do like The Rock does occasionally come in, cut a promo, and
yeah, but no. So get our Orton and Rhodes feud started. Get that underway. Then we'll probably bump up to a 7. But right at the moment, we're still sitting at that 6.5, 6.85 ish out of 10.
yeah, as it stands, I would say, and this is hard for me to admit, not because I'm such a Raw loyalist, but because I just think Raw, because it's been 3 hours, and I know a lot of people say differently, it's been the better show for at least the last year since they got a world title, because it's got 3 hours. It's got enough time to build and develop their storylines. With that said, I think SmackDown was the better show this week.
I don't know, man. I thought Raw was pretty solid.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. There's something about Raw every Monday. It just keeps you on your feet. SmackDown, like I said, we have a lot of stuff going on. You brought up the timing of Raw. Last week we had a 2 hour and 30-minute Raw,
Hmm.
and it felt like they told so much in that time frame.
This is true. Yeah.
SmackDown is a 3 hour show right now, I think,
Hmm.
and there's just so much going on. It's like, okay, after like 2 hours, you're like, okay, it's kind of like Raw when Raw did Raw Underground, or
You know what? That's fair. I'll give you that because right now I think Raw is the tighter show as far as it's better produced.
mhm.
It's on Netflix, so they every week they literally have to put out their best possible product.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's not going to feel worth it.
yeah.
With that said, I think the results of the matches and the contents of the show, I preferred SmackDown. I think that's
I'll
probably the
I'll
better
agree.
shot.
I'll agree with you on that part. The match aspect, yes, but the storytelling, no. And I think that's kind of where we'll agree is because
Hmm.
the storytelling is on Raw is great. Like you guys got accept the world title picture. We're still figuring that out,
Yeah.
um, but over here on SmackDown, storytelling is like, yeah, we got the one story of KO and Rhodes, and then you have the Belair stuff, which we haven't really brought up in the last couple of weeks. So it's like that storyline is still going on, and but Raw is just in such a short time of 2 hours and 30 minutes, they told a lot,
Hmm.
and I like that part about it. But I'm excited to hear your takes on
Yeah, we'll
Raw.
get into the Raw recap
Um,
starting and start with our Raw at large. Right now, we are looking at a full 3 hour show here. It's, I think, without commercials, it was 2 hours, 34 minutes, and 57 seconds if you do without the commercials. We had 5 separate matches on the show. There was 5 video packages. Yeah,
that's a lot for a Raw.
it's quite a bit. Yeah, we had ones that ranged from Seth to Drew's story recap, which we'll get to that in a little bit. We had Logan Paul announcing. Michael announced his debut afterwards, but he had a video promo of like, "Y'all hated me because I'm now the best, and I spent all my waking hours and my devotion to become the best WWE superstar, and I beat Floyd Mayweather, even though he didn't." So I'm just like, okay, you are an unreliable narrator and a douchebag. Moving on. There was also 5 backstage segments. So this week we had a fairly even split as far as 5 video packages, 5 matches, and 5 backstage segments. It was a 5-5-5 kind of week. I didn't think that's how it was going to go because early on we hit the 5 backstage segments
Yep.
by the time that we had 3 matches. And then the I'm sorry. We also have 3 promos. That's the last one I was missing. So 5 video packages, 5 matches, 3 promos. That's where we're at on those. Because it was Punk, and we had the beginning opening segment of Jey Uso and Gunther, and then the Sami Zayn promo. So that's Raw at large this week. We started off with Cole and Wade introducing the show.
Huh.
Once we move on past our stats and talking about the actual meat of the show, that's where the show began, was Cole and Wade opening the show because Pat was doing the national championship.
Yeah, that's right. He does the ESPN stuff, so he took the week off. Okay.
Yeah, and to that point, we were talking a hefty amount about commentators and announcers last week. Joe really showed what you were talking about. I'll give you another pat on the back credit because on Friday when they were introducing the Bob Euchre package, Joe was talking over the beginning of it. He was trying to set the scene and was too late in his information. So by the time that he was done talking, the video package was already 2/3
Right.
to halfway done. So it really showed his newness and, dare I say, detachment from the product. Whereas when Michael Cole introduced other things that was happening in the show, he shut up in time for the video packages to show. There was ample time to be produced, and he felt it felt like he felt those things.
And that just stems from Michael Cole being on here for so long. He
Right.
gets the sport. He's never done anything else. He's only been a WWE commentary. Yeah, he did some backstage stuff, and he's always been WWE. Joe comes from being a sports announcer in football. And
Yeah.
with that, there's a lot that happens in football. Interceptions, touchdowns, a lot that happens. Game-winning field goals, everything. WWE is so in the moment. You don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, you're reading off a script. But obviously, spoiler alert, wrestling, it's not real. It's entertainment. Yes, what they do.
real to me.
No, what they do is real. Do not do any of that. If you go out and do something, I don't condone that. But it's he doesn't. I don't think he really truly gets it, and maybe he'll build into it. But I think that's why Michael's doing every pay-per-view
Yeah.
is because we can't trust Joe yet. Maybe we'll get to trust Joe. I don't know, but. But yeah, it's he fits more in the NFL college football world than he does in our world. But that's what they wanted.
He's a good enough commentator that I think he will get acclimated given time. I firmly do believe that with the amount of time and reps that he's getting across the shows, I think he will get adjusted. No problem. Our first segment of the show, Michael Cole yeeted. I think he watches the podcast.
Yeet.
He was like, I'm just going to go ahead and yeet my heart out. And it was funny because he was dabbing up with Jey Uso and doing the yeet, and Wade was having none of it.
Wade just, I got some bad news.
I got some bad news for you. So, and him and Gunther had their back and forth of like yada yada yada. It was just blah blah blah. It was a blah 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 segment. It really was. The only thing of note that I liked was Jey Uso had a sting for Gunther and said, "Say what you want, but between us, only one of us has main evented WrestleMania." That's what Uso said to Gunther.
Heyo, he can also say that to Punk too.
Well, yeah, he could. Yeah,
I mean,
he could say that.
But he's not wrong though.
So I liked that burn. That was shows that Jey Uso still can be funny, charismatic, and crazy, while at the same time.
You talked about that last week though.
Yeah.
He needed that moment to build himself up, and I think he did that.
So it was like, yeah, I may have been a quote unquote tag team wrestler, but I'm still credible in my own right.
Exactly. And you hinted at that last week. That's the change. That's the world championship change that you said he needed.
Mm-hmm.
And he can do that. Yeah, he's got the yeets and the whatevers, but I think they're not going to pull the trigger, but
No.
I mean,
They had 2 weeks to prepare for Saturday night's main event. They needed a popular enough superstar.
they've had months to prepare for this Saturday.
Since they announced the title match, they had 2 weeks. So they needed a popular enough wrestler to take that crown. But you're right; they've had months to build a title match.
They've had months to build this night up, and
It kind of feels thrown together a little, doesn't it?
It is because again, what's next Saturday? The Rumble.
Right.
It makes no sense. I'm gonna stop my spiel on that.
We got our first backstage segment saying that Bayley is the new Raw superstar via the transfer portal.
Okay.
Wild card role. What's interesting to me is that Nia is been there the last couple of weeks and even's been announced for a world title match against Ripley. We found out later in the show, despite not being confirmed as a Raw superstar, which is weird to me. But a lot of what happened last week of Bayley being in her hometown, that to me looked like it was a quick write-off. But seeing that they made her the newest Raw superstar, it made sense because at the end of the segment, she was eyeing Rhea's title, like, oh yeah, I might go after that. But it was strange to me because later on, Nia and Bayley had a match later on the show, and Bayley lost.
I mean, you got to build Nia up for Saturday.
I mean, that's true. You're not wrong, but your newest Raw superstar who eyed the championship lost to a SmackDown wrestler on Raw.
It's because they don't know what to do with Bailey. And I say this credibly because she was a world champion. We talked about this last week. Her title reign, you couldn't name me 3 people that she had a good match with.
Right.
They can't build Bailey up. It's just like Finn Balor. They can't build him up to be a singles guy. Bailey's just Bailey. She's not this superstar. She's not this mega star anymore. And I hate saying that because I like Bailey, but she's not credible enough. Not as credible as she was 8 years ago when they brought the women's revolution. Because when Charlotte was like, I have nobody else to go against, Mick Foley comes out and goes, bang bang, I got somebody for you. And then we get Bailey, the hugging, the wacky inflatable arms guys, and we get the Bailey buddies, but it's like Bailey hasn't been as credible within the last couple of years, and that's why Nia beat her, and Nia probably deserved to beat her, and I mean it builds her up for Saturday.
Yeah, it's a little strange because Bailey over the past week has been on every single show. She was on Raw last week. She was on NXT last week. She was on SmackDown this week as of our recording, and then she was on Raw last night, a couple nights ago.
Right. Hey, she's trying to be the workhorse, but I don't know what they're gonna do with her. Like I said, she can eye that world title all she wants, but what has she done to earn that? I mean, like I said, she hasn't been this credible of a character in a couple years. It's like, yeah, okay, she's going to all these brands, but what are we gonna do?
And I think her impending feud with Perez is showcasing kind of the role that she is going to be in. And she's not to this level of non-credibility. She's still got some tooth in her, but she feels similarly to what Dolph Ziggler felt like for the longest time. Someone who had a name value behind them and someone who the fans desperately wanted to do more than he was doing, but is ultimately somebody who's just there to prop up the other talent.
It's kind of like Natalia. She shows up here and there and puts over all these people because that's where she's at in her career.
Yeah.
I don't think Bailey's quite there yet, but she's gonna get there. I think she could do what Natty does. When Natty retires, I think that's kind of the role Bailey's gonna head to. And I hate saying that because I like Natty and I like Bailey, but just watching it at face value where we're at, I think that's what we're getting. I think that's where the road she's kind of heading down towards.
Now, we also mentioned last week about how LA Knight and Jey Uso were announced for the Rumble, despite the fact that later on, Uso is challenging for the world title. This just shows how thrown together the Saturday night's main event card feels, because Nia last week announced she was in the Rumble, and this night on Raw got announced for a world titles match against Rhea at Saturday night's main event.
And this is where... This is one of the main reasons I have a problem with this. We have the Royal Rumble next Saturday. We have no idea about the women.
Yeah.
The men is still stacking up. Why do we need something before? Why? So we can get Cody Rhodes back on another show? I like Cody. I don't want him on another. I don't want him on Saturday Night Main Event.
Right.
I don't want Saturday Night Main Event in general. Because if you think about it, Kevin Owens and Cody's match was a Saturday Night Main Event. They've been doing this for a month, which is the longest feud Cody's had so far with this title reign.
Yeah.
Don't do it before a major pay-per-view. That's the only stickler I have. I like the idea of Saturday Night Main Event. The first one kind of flopped in ratings, if I remember correctly. It was not well viewed.
Really?
I think it was like I can't remember the exact number, but it wasn't well viewed from what I saw.
That's shocking because it was a stacked card.
But you got to look at it this way. Like I said, we have the Royal Rumble next weekend. We don't need a Saturday Night Main Event the week before. And you guys have thrown this out 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Or whenever they announced that it was coming into San Antonio, they chose that night without realizing, oh crap, we got the Rumble next week.
So it undercuts a lot of the wrestlers who might be in the Rumble, or it just feels like, oh wow, yeah, we know so and so is gonna win.
And obviously, we'll do our Royal Rumble predictions next week. You obviously know who's gonna win every match this weekend. We already know. Rhea's not losing.
Right.
Gunther's not losing because
Right.
those two have already their opponents have already announced they're going to the Rumble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't you just have him in a basic match? Why don't you have Jay go against Gunther and prove himself? If he beats him, guess who gets a world title match in the future?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just throw him in the world title match just because he goes, like,
Yeah,
just because he's popular with the crowd doesn't mean. How many times did he go against Roman for the Universal title?
Right.
4? How many times has he won? 0. Why are we throwing him in there? I don't know. Give Punk a match. Or I don't know. Give Rollins another chance. Or I don't know. Give Drew another chance. Obviously, they're in their own triple threat area, but
yeah.
I
mean, yeah, it does. It undercuts it. It's whether intentional or unintentional. And I hope it's not intentional where he just thinks, yeah, I can throw these people in this card and it's not going to make sense. But but the money and the presentation. The idea behind having the show should be you want to get people that won't be on the Rumble on the card. And if that's the case for some of these guys, okay, that's fine. But I would argue Gunther needs to face somebody who won't be in the Rumble that next week. Somebody who won't be on the show already.
Goldberg. Because we all know that man's getting another match, and we all dang well know he's probably going after another title match for no reason this year.
We'll see what happens when he shows up.
I can't.
But at the risk of devolving, we'll continue on with the show. The first match we had next was Kofi versus Rey Mysterio, and I thought this was noteworthy because Michael Cole said this was the first one-on-one match Rey Mysterio and Kofi had in 16 years.
Wow.
It was a big night for long-time stats because on Friday, KO and Rey Mysterio's match, that was the first time they had ever faced off. Ever.
Yeah.
And two WWE big stars, first time that they had ever had a match.
Well, you have to look at it, though, from the time frame that everybody was in. Rey Mysterio is 50 years old.
Right.
He's been doing this since 2002 in WWE, or whenever WCW got bought out. He's been doing this for years in WWE.
It's crazy, though, because he's been back since late 2018. And to say that he hasn't had a one-on-one match with Kofi since he's been back, he hasn't had a one-on-one match with KO since he's been back, those are crazy stats.
You're not wrong, but you have to look at the story of the opponents.
Right.
Kevin's in his I'm the champion mode, so he's gonna just show up when he wants. He's like, oh, I do what I want. I'm the champion. Kofi's in a heel mode for the first time in his career. Him and Xavier are trying to run down because he's the locker room leader, and obviously Xavier can handle things and be that, but I've never seen Kofi do this, and so you got to look at it that way. They haven't fought in 16 years, but storyline wise, why have they not done it? When him and Dom were tag champs, who was the main tag champs they were going against? Jimmy and Jay.
Right.
So you didn't have him over on Raw going against Kofi, Xavier, and Big E.
I guess that's true.
So you'd have to look at the characters that he's going against.
It still baffles me.
I mean, no, that's definitely the Kevin Owens one doesn't shock me, but the Kofi and And Ray one kind of does.
Especially since at this point it's been close to 7 years that Ray's been back.
Been a little over 7 because he show up in Rumble.
So
in
he
18?
showed up Rumble of 18, but he wasn't back full time until that fall.
Gotcha.
So that it's murky whether or not it's a full 7 years, but it's within that time frame. But regardless, this match was not really anything. It's cool to see Rey Mysterio being on both shows because he was in San Diego, his hometown, on Friday. That's why he was there. And now him being back on Raw, his main show. It was cool to see JBL on commentary. I'll give it that. It was nice to see JBL mess it back around with Michael Cole. They're always a fun duo.
I love those two as a commentator group on Friday, especially going back to 2007 when The Undertaker had a steel cage match against Batista, and he's like, "Damn it, Edge, no, 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 that's not cool, no," and Edge cashed in, but yeah,
but this was kind of a nothing match. They really was there so that Kofi and Xavier could showcase their heel skills, and they've done a whole lot without doing much of anything. They've showed up to the ring, they've gotten booed really heavily, but that's all they've ever really done. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is their first match since turning heel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're not allowed in the locker room because Rey Mysterio said no. It's like, no, it's just because y'all are assholes and we like Big E and you guys screwed him over. Now,
but it's been about 2 months since they turned heel. It was November when they turned heel, as far as I know, and this is the first match they've had since that day.
Wow.
So to me, they really haven't done much of anything to get me invested into their heel persona, which, to be fair, for most people and definitely the crowds they've been in attendance, turning on Big E and saying the things that they have been enough. But I don't know. Where do you feel on that? Do you feel like that's enough to warrant the heat that they've been getting?
I think so. Because Big E was the muscle of the group, and once you lose that muscle, you lose steam as a team. And in my personal opinion, this group should have split up years ago. And because you all three guys who are super, super talented. Obviously, now we don't know if Big E's going to come back and ever wrestle again. We don't know. Xavier Woods can handle being a mid-card champion. Kofi had one world title reign. Would I give him another one? No. But I understand why WWE finally gave him that championship. He's been the hard worker. He's been there. Obviously, at WrestleMania against Bryan, he finally gets it done. I personally wouldn't give him another world championship match. But you could put those two back in the mid card, and then Big E for sure is a main event guy. Do I think his theme song's a little goofy? Yes, but he comes from a goofy group, and yeah, they were the heel group at the beginning, so they've done the heel thing.
Yeah,
it's
this is a lot different.
So long, but this one's different because you guys were hinting at breaking up for weeks, and then all of a sudden you guys come out and turn on Big E. It's like
it came out of nowhere.
He's done nothing wrong. He's been at home recovering or doing whatever, and it's like he's done nothing wrong. But I don't know. I'm still up and down on the whole heel thing with those two.
And it hasn't given their characters enough extra edge to win matches because we saw here he lost the match against Ray.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a definitive match, which this show felt like a Vince show in its endings because it seems like we could not get a match that could end conclusively. Oh my gosh. Here in the first match of the show, it was cool. It was a unique way to end the match because Kofi was going for an SOS and Ray rolled him up as Kofi was spinning into the SOS. So it was a dope way to end the match. But I hate the fact that it was just another roll up because it's like, well, can't can't we at least have Kofi losing and then they attack him afterwards? They would have a reason to.
Yeah.
Now it's just, oh, you caught me off guard. Ooh.
Oh no, what are we gonna do?
Doesn't really give anybody any momentum
No.
at all. There was no definitive nature. Kofi's not as mad as he could have been if he had lost definitively, and not that Ray needs the winning rub, but if he gets the victory decisively and definitively, it at least gives him that extra momentum going forward.
Yeah. I can agree to that.
But as far as like the TNA pay-per-view goes on Sunday, they didn't mention it. Well, yeah, they didn't mention it specifically, which I was a little surprised because I thought they would, considering their partnership. But on this match, JBL was joining on commentary, and Wade was talking about JBL, and he said, "I know for a fact that JBL's got at least one more clothesline from hell left in him."
Oh.
So it's like, we know what you're talking about.
We know exactly what you're talking about. And going along that, it was super, super cool to see Triple H tweet out TNA.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I love seeing that because we talked about it last week. We lived in a generation where Vince was like, no, never in a million years. Triple H is like, whoa. One, there's money involved.
Yeah.
Two, we're all in the same industry. So why don't we work together? But, so yeah, I was super, super happy to see Triple H tweeted that out. I saw that the other night. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I saw a post about it. I think I saw a couple other people. I think Cena even tweeted a picture of TNA and WWE picture together.
And then Joe Hendry retweeted or posted on Instagram Cena's post of so it was a post within a post.
All you gotta do is say his name and he appears.
Exactly, yeah.
But
we don't. I already said his name, so I broke the rule.
I know.
Like, we don't want him to appear.
It's like Beetlejuice.
But yeah, so it was cool to see Wade allude to that. After that, we got Penta's recap debut of last week, a video package of that. And then we saw Chad Gable in the back saying that he was going to go talk to Dom. That was another backstage segment. And then Sami Zayn declared his entry into the Royal Rumble, and we got something that Connor, you heard it here, Connor predicted last week could be the WrestleMania feud. And that is Sami Zayn versus KO, Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens somehow wins the world title at Royal Rumble. So
it doesn't have to be for the world title. This is just a match, I think, because the way that Kevin is right now, he's mad that everybody teams with Roman, even though Roman just tried to ruin his career. And Sammy's a part of the OG bloodline, so yes, you kind of have to have Kevin go after Sammy. And Drew kind of hinted at going after everybody. He's already gone after Jay. He's already hurt Jimmy. He hasn't gone after Cody yet, or he hasn't gone after Roman yet. So Drew has a couple more people, but KO, he's gonna go. I think he'll go after Sammy at the Rumble. If Kevin loses, I think he'll pull Sammy out and beat the crap out of him. I don't know if he's gonna actually eliminate him, but he could pull him out and hurt him to where he can't get back into the match.
yeah, so KO, he talked about having the WWE Championship match if Sami Zayn wins. It was interesting because he said, I know I'm going to win. I know you're going to win. So we're going to have this match in main event WrestleMania. But ultimately he said, I've got your back. So it's intriguing because
you know what I got your back means. Like, I got your back. I'm going
Yeah.
to pull your back out of the rope.
And then he looked at Sammy and he goes, it's okay because I know you've got my back too. And so it's just an impending
weird.
clash that's going to happen.
So weird.
And normally I'm all like, really, we're breaking the brand split rules at this point. But with a storyline like this, it's got so much weight and history behind it that I feel like you can make an exception. Plus, you said it yourself, KO is the kind of guy that has just showing up no matter what and literally doesn't care. He feels like he's a loose cannon type of deal. So But I liked Sammy in this promo that he did because he talked about not having won the world championship before, and it's nice because he mentioned saying that he doesn't need the world title because he already has the love and admiration of those who do love him and the fans, but he desperately wants it because the only difference between him and the other top guys in WWE is that they've won the world title before. He's not tasted what that's like, and he desperately wants it.
Yeah. Um, I
You got something to say? Say it.
I don't think he needs it. And I'm not saying that because I don't like Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
I like Sammy just as well as I like CM Punk or I like Seth or I like Roman. Obviously, I like Seth more because he's a Bears fan just like me. But um, I think Sammy's character, if you were gonna pull the World Heavyweight Championship pick, title, put a main title on him, you would have done it in an elimination chamber against Roman. And the reason I say that because one, it would have been the underdog story, kind of like Rey Mysterio. Obviously, his was underdog because Eddie, and I'm not discarding what Ray did, but when Eddie passed, kind of catapulted Ray into that position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you wanted to pull off any sort of swerve in WWE, like the biggest swerve in history, Sami Zayn in his hometown winning would have been that moment. Um, then you could have been like Roman versus Cody versus Sami in a triple threat. Roman gets his title back or whatever because it was a fluke victory. Blah blah blah. Like I don't know, but I don't think Sami needs the world title. I don't think
Mm.
he's got it in him to be a world champion. I could be wrong. It's just my personal opinion. You guys out there could totally disagree and hate my guts for me saying this, but I personally don't think he needs it. I think he's fine with where he's at. Um, he could. He really didn't need to even beat Gunther for the IC title because you had Drew or you had Sheamus who's missing the one title. But Sammy did that. Sammy's kind of in that bubble. I don't think he's a main event guy. I think he's a mid cardy. He's a main eventer, but not for the world title. Um,
I. It's a shame that the window feels like it's passed at the moment. Not to say they can't do what they did with him in the Bloodline saga and reheat him back up to where
yeah.
he feels like he's a big enough star to do it. But instead of beating Gunther last year for the record, he could have gone for the world title or been in contention for the world title mix because I think he needed that championship more than he did the Intercontinental Championship because they gave him the record with the hope and thought that if he beats Gunther, takes the record, he's going to feel like he's a main eventer, keep him in the mix for the next year. That way he feels like a world title contender.
Yeah.
Now I will say this, I think, and you may disagree, but as far as superstar levels, not charisma and star power, but I think Sammy is a more credible world title contender than Jay is.
I would agree with that because Sammy's been in the singles division a lot longer than Jay has. And yeah, Jay got popular by saying one word. So that obviously builds into something, um I would agree with that. I think Sammy's more credible of that than Jay is. Um Now going on about Jay real quick, he said the one word, and he's catapulted himself up into this.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to continue a storyline between him and Gunther, Gunther does a low blow on Saturday. Jay says, "Man, you cheated. I'm
Mm.
coming after you."
And that's his motivation in the Rumble.
There's your Rumble match, the setup. There's your Royal Rumble World Heavyweight Championship match right there. Even though Jay said he's going to be in the Rumble, or that's his motivation at the Rumble.
Well, see, that's what I was thinking, was while he's in the Rumble match itself, he's thinking, okay, this is my motivation to attack him full force.
I got screwed, so. But he obviously Gunther's gonna be sitting in a press box watching the match, because unless he has a match, but yeah. So it's like, if that's what you're gonna do to catapult Jay into that moment, there you go.
Yeah, with that said, Sami Zayn right now, I would not consider him the guy to win the Rumble. I'd say he's the darkest of dark horse candidates to be able to win the Rumble. I'm glad they still have him as having world title aspirations, because it still felt like he was just, hey, I'm a guy on Raw, and I've been having top feuds, but I don't really care about the world title.
This is why I'm excited for next week. I'm super excited for next week, because we're actually gonna break down who we think's the dark horse, the Iron Man, and our winners. So next week's episode is gonna be really fun, giving you guys our input on the Rumble matches.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm not trying to do too much of a spoiler this week, but he's not wrong though.
Yeah, so moving on with the show, Sheamus had an interview talking about his IC title match with Braun Breaker. Both of those guys are really, really hard hitting. I think that they are going to have a fun match, a banger, if you will.
And then it's another banger after banger after banger after banger.
And then next up, we had the aforementioned Nia versus Bayley match. The record overall between them two was 7-6 Nia, and with Nia's victory, it moved to 8-6.
I didn't realize they fought that many times. I didn't realize Bayley's won that many times.
Yeah, Nia's now 2 matches ahead of her, 8-6. Interesting things from the match: Bayley did Nia's move. So if you're thinking 2K move thieves,
yeah,
Bayley did the Annihilator. And it was interesting continuity, because on Friday, Tiffany was focusing on the arm bar of Bayley, and throughout this match, Nia Jax used Bayley's arm as a point of interest.
Oh,
So it was nice little continuity between Friday to Monday. But then Nia, after the match, she came face to face with Rhea, because at the beginning of the show, she attacked her before she even came into the building. So you heard, "This is my brutality."
I'm over that theme song.
And then,
sorry, everybody.
And then that started the brawl, which led to their title match, because Rhea challenged her. What I did note out of this, and I think that says more about me than it does about the segment at large, I noticed it's been 3 whole weeks since we got the new announce table and the new referee shirt, but specifically the new announce table. I've noticed it has not broke yet.
I've noticed that too. Even on SmackDown, like with Cody and Kevin, yeah, they've broken tables, but not the commentating table. It's like, what did they do to the table? I like the broken tables.
Yeah, they said they've reinforced it, and it looks all official, and they've got LED lights on there, so I get that they probably don't want to break it soon.
You realize as a kid, you were probably sitting there watching, and they're like, oh my God, the table, they're not going to use the table again. All of a sudden, they come back from commercial, like, well, welcome back to the table. It's like, what? It's like, we just had a broken table.
So I'm very interested when or if the table will break. And who do you think might do it?
Kevin Owens and Cody.
From the ladder?
Yep.
Okay.
I think they'll be on the outside, and Cody will set him up, and he'll get on top of the ladder and do not a swanton bomb, but he'll just do a frog splash. He'll do a frog splash. I think it breaks the table.
I think there's an outside chance of Strowman and Fatu doing it at Saturday night's main event.
Nuts. I'm not excited for this Saturday, but that's the one match I'm looking forward to. I like Braun Strowman. I always have liked Braun Strowman. He's a monster among men. Or monster among monsters. I'm sorry, but dude, Braun Strowman versus Fatu better be the main event Saturday. I don't know what.
It's probably not gonna be.
It won't be, but it needs to be.
It's gonna be the match of the night. That's
has
what I'm looking at.
Does the ring break?
Well, ring or tail. I feel like you gotta have one of them.
I mean, Fatu's a monster. Braun strong. Superplex.
It's a rare spot. They already had Strowman and Reed do
I
it, so I don't think they're
know.
going to retread and have Strowman and Fatu do it.
I know.
To me, I'm just like, it's a spectacle match. The table's not broke. They could say, that's the first time our new table is broken.
Oh my God, they broke the new table.
Our steel reinforced beam jet fuel does really melt steel beams. With that said, we had another backstage segment after our match with Rhea and Nia, and it was Chad finally having a conversation with Dom, and he said something that was kind of interesting. He said, Dom gave him a business card, and he said, so I guess I'll try to master the dark arts of Lucha Libre. I don't know if that was hinting to anybody specifically, because Dom said he's got a guy, or if that's just Chad Gable being Chad Gable and hamming it up of like, because he's had a problem with luchadors. That's been his whole gimmick, is that he can't really beat luchadors.
Right.
So he's like, in order to master Lucha Libre, I've got to study the dark arts.
I don't know. Watch the Lucha Underground. You'll figure it out there, buddy.
A couple of video packages we had. We had Lyra and her recap of winning the IC title. Still no character to be present. She's champion. Congrats. We had MLK Jr. package that they showed. They do this for every special holiday. And then Sammy and Seth bumped into each other backstage and had a convo about last week and how Seth told him you need to take care of yourself and not everyone else. We finally got our third match tonight, and it was Penta versus Pete Dunne. So I know you had some gripes last week. I'm very interested to see what you thought about the match number 2 for Penta. Yeah? Still?
Nothing.
Okay.
I mean, there was one cool move. I think he did the Destroyer, the Mexican Destroyer, but...
So you weren't impressed because I noted this, and I loved it. Penta went for the moonsault. Pete Dunne went for the moonsault off the turnbuckle corners, and mid-moonsault, Penta super kick mid-moonsault. I mean, that's cool. Come on. Comment down below if you think that was a cool spot.
I'm not saying it's not cool, but they hyped him up. They hyped him up way too much, doing the vignettes and everybody knew he was coming to WWE. There was no point doing the vignettes. You could have done without those and brought him out, and then I would have been like, oh my God, I've seen him before, but we knew who it was the minute they did the
yeah,
we knew who that was, like 100%. So if y'all didn't do that, I would like Penta.
So I will say something that I've noticed, and I haven't watched a whole, because he's been on AEW, and I haven't watched a whole lot of AEW in recent memory to see him. But he's dealing with some of the same problems that I noticed, like Gunther and Pete Dunne had problems with. He's got something that's a gimmick for him, or that gets the crowd pumped up and into their matches, but he's done it so much that it feels like it's just so gimmicky. Pete Dunne had it when he was breaking people's fingers.
Yep.
Gunther had it, and some could say he still has it, but he doesn't do it nearly as much as he did, especially when he was first getting into the business, the chops. He was chopping people all the time, and it was like, dude, do you have any other moves?
Right.
Penta's doing Cero Miedo. Feels like every other move because the crowd gets into it, the crowd chants with it, and it's something that gets them an attachment to his character.
Right.
But it just feels like every other move he's doing that, and it feels so gimmicky.
It's forced.
Exactly.
It feels forced. And like I said, if you don't hype him up, because we all knew he was coming. The minute he left wherever he was at, we knew he was coming. You could have made that a surprise thing against Gable last week. And you didn't. You made it a surprise, but not a surprise.
Yeah, it could have been Gable coming to the ring and saying, "I, you know what? I challenge any luchador in the back. Come out here and meet me face to face.
I challenge anybody to come meet me face to face, and it's Penta."
Yeah, and then he shows up. But I will say I am digging this match more than I did last week's match. I think they had a better showing.
I think Pete Dunne's just a better character than Chad is. And I think Pete's a better wrestler than Chad is.
There's a debate on that to be had.
And I'm not saying Chad's not a good wrestler, but Chad being a singles wrestler is like putting Peyton Manning on the worst team and having him go and try and win a Super Bowl for that team.
Okay, elaborate on that.
Okay, so in 2007, you take Peyton Manning and put him on the Raiders, who were the worst team in the league that year. You think they're going to go win a Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning?
Probably not.
Absolutely not. Would they make the playoffs? Absolutely not. Would he win them another game? Maybe. But it's just, I don't like Chad as a singles competitor. I liked him for a moment because it was the underdog story. You had him go against Gunther. And if it wasn't going to be Drew, Sheamus winning the IC title against Gunther, Gable was the perfect opportunity.
So you still don't buy Chad as a single star?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I did. I was buying into it. You give him 3 chances at the IC title, and he doesn't win any of them, but you have Sammy go against Gunther 1 time, and he wins the championship, you lost the character.
So to use your comparison, it's like Manning goes to this new team who's really bad. It's like Chad going to a new division, a singles division, and he's a great wrestler, and people see him as such. And he's there, and he's so new in the division, and that's kind of where you were last year. He's so new, so hyped.
Yep.
And you loved him because you were seeing him do these impassionate promos, and it felt like, okay, this is the guy to do the thing, and then he fails.
Yep.
It would be like if Peyton goes to the team, fails, and then the newness is wore off, and you're like, well, I just don't buy him as their quarterback anymore.
Exactly.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah.
That's what we have here on KTE Podcast.
We like to bring a little bit of different sports into this also.
Okay, well, and there was no kick out of the Mexican Destroyer this week.
Holy crap, I'm surprised.
Pete Dunne just rolled out of the ring, and that was it. So, no kick out.
That's even worse.
No, it's not, because there was no definitive kick out. You could easily argue if he was still in the ring, he could have been pinned. I know that because the announcers do it all the time. They're like, oh, it was so smart of Pete Dunne to roll out of the ring because he might have been pinned. I know that because they did something exactly like that on the show, which we will get to. Penta won with his Penta driver. Michael said we can expect big things. We had our Logan Paul vignette. Moving on. Punk came out for an interview in the crowd with Jackie Redmond. He didn't say much of anything other than, I'm hyped for the Rumble, and I'm going to win. And if any of these other guys that are in the Rumble, the stacked card, Cena, Roman, Sammy, I'll throw them over. It doesn't matter. It was an excuse to get Punk on the show, which I'm not going to complain because it's cool to see him, but it was a nothing segment. The only thing I have written down for that, and I'm going to be a stickler about it because we're from Indianapolis, he said Lucas Oil Field.
Oh.
Not Lucas Oil Stadium.
Oh.
So
this sounds horrible.
Just know that Indianapolis hates you, CM Punk.
No, that's not true at all. No. It's kind of like, I don't know, Hulk Hogan saying something at WrestleMania 30, you know?
the Silverdome.
I mean, if you want to bring up some stuff, we'll talk about a good old Hulkster there.
Speaking of Hogan, Punk did say if Hogan decided he wanted to enter the Royal Rumble, he would beat up and throw up his dusty ass. That's what he said. That's what Punk said.
I saw a post the other day. It was Hogan, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Ric Flair.
Okay.
They were like, what would you think if all 3 of these guys entered the Royal Rumble? I was like, I'd turn it off. I would instantly shut off. The minute Hogan's thing started off, then all of a sudden Hacksaw, nope. And then all of a sudden Ric Flair, I'm like, nope, I'm done. I can't watch it. I'm done. I'll watch the rest. I'll watch. If that's the main event, I'm done. I'm going to bed. That's it.
He'll just come out and be like, well, let me tell you something, brother. I've got the greatest beer in the world.
He's supposed to be there Saturday.
Yes.
From what I've heard.
I did see that. Which, to the argument, we talked about how can you use him. I think what they've been doing as far as him promoting Saturday night's main event is a great usage because it's a retro feel.
That's a great usage, but don't bring him out.
Well,
you don't need you don't need to bring him out, and that's what they're gonna do though. That's what WWE wants to do. They're gonna throw him out there and
just use him for video packages and promos. I think
I'd
that's
be okay
his best
with
use.
That. I would 100% be okay with that. Instead of coming to steal a paycheck.
He does what he does.
Hey, I'd be the same way if I got paid that much from WWE. Oh, you want to come out for 5 minutes? All right, bet.
From real Americans to Japanese people, we have Damage Control versus PFC, a.k.a. Nobody Cares.
Who?
Exactly. Pure Fusion Collective. It's Sonya Deville's group with
who?
Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler.
No, I know these people, but who? Y'all came up with a stupid nickname. Who? Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, I wrote down in my notes, it felt like the only person in this ring who was a star was Io Sky.
I think she's a star in general.
That's what I'm saying. She's the only person in that ring that felt credible.
Because, isn't it, who the heck even still is in Damage Control?
It's Io, it's Kairi, it's Dakota Kai, and technically still Asuka. But Sane got injured by PFC, which is why they had the match.
I knew that, but where's Asuka at?
Asuka's been injured as well. Real life injured. I don't know if Sane's injured
if it's just
in storyline or it's real, but yeah. So Damage Control
shows how much I know about Damage Control. I used to watch the Damage Control stuff because Bailey, and she was the leader of the group. And then they turned on Bailey, and it's like, who?
They're down to half strength as it is right now. Cool stuff happened though. Zoe Stark did a drop kick from halfway across the ring, a springboard drop kick. It was dope. It was cool.
It was dope.
But there wasn't much to it. Io won with the moonsault, and that was it. And I'm just thinking, Dakota could be Intercontinental Champion right now. Isn't it something that we got a video package for Lyra, and Dakota Kai was the one who was on the show?
Yeah. WWE tends to do that, though, if you've noticed that.
Yeah, the next week after, it's hype me up for video package.
It's not even just the video package thing. It's just like, where's Braun Breaker at?
He was in a backstage segment with Sheamus, and that was it.
And that's why we're getting an IC title match between those two?
It's because he beat Kaiser last week, and then Braun Breaker was at ringside. They got into a tussle.
So they touched each other and said, oh, guess what?
Yeah.
That's the title match.
Uh-huh. That's exactly what it was.
Raw had a bad show from what I'm hearing.
It wasn't. That's why I said SmackDown was kind of better. So that left it all to the main event. Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. And this is where I will give Raw and Netflix so much credit simply because every time that they've had a main event, it feels like a big deal. It feels like it's a main event worthy match. But 2 weeks in a row, and I can't remember if they did a promo before the Seth Rollins CM Punk match. I thought they did.
I'm sure they did some sort of video package from
But every
all the
week
years.
On Raw, they've had a recap video package before the main event. It makes it feel like it's a pay-per-view match where they're doing story recaps. And here you go. Here's this big-time matchup. We're going to give you 20 minutes. Go out and do your thing. And that's why it made it so all the more infuriating that this match ended with a jackknife roll-up. Because
that's the best way to end the show. That's the best way to end a match.
It dawned on me as the match was getting to a close. I thought, who are they going to have win this match? And it made me realize both of these guys are top stars, They're both going into the Rumble, and they're potential winners and potential world title contenders. None of them can afford to lose. So what are we gonna do? Ha ha ha! I rolled you up real quick. I'm smarter than you. And Drew's like, "Grr! I'm mad at you for rolling me up.
Grr.
So I'm gonna attack you after
like
the match."
that you just were like, grr. I'm mad. Grr.
And then, in order to stop Seth being hit on the ring post, Sammy comes out and he saves Seth because they're friends, apparently. And then in the middle of that, he goes to hit a haluva kick on Drew McIntyre, but Drew moves out of the way and he hits Seth. And because Raw's ending in 20 seconds, Seth gets up and it's like, "Why'd you do that?" And then he gives him an evil eye and Raw ends.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. So after
Lame.
after all of that, I did my ratings. What would you officially rate your Raw this week?
So last week I gave Raw an 8 out of 10 because it was shorter. That didn't entirely play into the rating, but it was so succinct. We talked about it was such a short show, but they packed in so much.
The storytelling was good.
There was nothing in the show that really made me hyped or excited or feel awesome about it. They had some cool matches that they could have done more with, but decided not to. And I'll give the main event credit. They're two big superstars that throughout the course of the match made me involved, and I thought, okay, this is two superstars doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ended flat. You can have Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins fight each other every week, and it'll still feel like a special deal. But if you can't stick the landing, if your fun moves go nowhere, it doesn't mean anything. And I really don't have a whole lot of notes. You know me, I'm pretty detailed when it comes to my notes. I really didn't have a whole lot of notes for this.
Last week you had 5 pages of stuff.
I did. For Raw, I had 5 pages. For this one, you know what I had?
A page and a half.
2 pages, barely. And
he was cramming in that last little bit.
I was, yeah. That's not a lie. But I really didn't have a whole lot of notes for this match because it was Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre just doing their thing, which is fine, but it's not noteworthy. It's not exciting, and I don't really know what they're doing with this Sammy Seth inclusion. The only thing that it just reeks of to me is we're coasting until the Rumble.
Yeah, or are they coasting to Mania?
No, because all these guys are Rumble entrants.
Well, that's
so that's
true.
The promotion.
That's true, but then
these top stars are all mixing up together.
Well, right, but then you have to look at after the Rumble and storyline wise. Where are they going to go with Seth? I don't think he wins the Rumble. If I'm going to be blunt honest, I have a feeling they're going to either give it to Roman, Cena, or Punk.
It's weird. It's weird because on Raw, they were so adamant that Seth was the favorite to win the Rumble, and I don't understand why that is.
How. He's got nothing to do with the world title picture right now. He is in this feud with Punk and Drew and Sammy. He's not even thought about that world title.
But they mentioned on commentary like 3 times that he was one of the top 3 favorites, and then sometimes they said he was the favorite to win the Rumble, and it's like, what?
I feel like I don't know what they're gonna do. Obviously, our predictions next week are gonna be like, oh, that makes sense. That you can see. I could see why you say that. I don't know. I'm so torn. I'm still going back and forth on my predictions on everybody.
Which we will get to that next week. And as for me and my Raw review, I cannot put this above a 6, and I'm trending towards 5 out of 10. And if you're just going grade averages, that sounds like it's an F. I wouldn't consider this a F show. I would consider this a C- show.
D+, C- show.
Yeah, I would. That's why I feel like 5 out of 10 is just because they had a good half of things, but the other half they failed to develop or give me intrigue
I'm
going
gonna
out of
have
the
to
show.
when I head home. I'm probably gonna turn it on because I didn't actually get to watch. I saw on Twitter. I followed on Twitter. Obviously, national championship game last night. Sorry, Notre Dame. We got whooped, but I didn't watch Raw last night. Or whenever. I didn't watch Raw, so I'm gonna go back and watch. And I can agree from what you told me. It just because you're pretty oriented on your stuff, but you didn't seem as jazzed as normal on Raw. So I'm taking your word for it that it just wasn't that big of a show. Um, but okay, I guess I'm gonna go home and watch some Raw then, cause get my 2 cents into it.
Yeah.
Um,
Overall for the week, it was a largely uneventful week. I feel like there were some first time in a long time and first time ever matches, but this feels like it's a 6 out of 10 week for Raw and SmackDown.
I'd probably go about that too. Again, these 2 weeks, these weeks in between the Rumble, like getting to the Rumble, they normally are super exciting because everybody's ready for the Rumble. You cut it off. You cut the momentum off because you threw a Saturday event on there.
You're having to build to two things at once, and honestly, I didn't think that would be a problem a couple months ago, but the closer we get, the bigger it is.
Yeah, because we don't know who's gonna be in the women's match. We
Yeah.
know one person. Obviously WWE's got all the list of everybody in it, but it's hard to do,
Yeah.
especially with the Saturday event.
With that said, though, the men's rumble is looking stacked.
I'm excited to talk about this next week because, dude, that men's rumble, I'm excited to watch. The rest of the pay per view I may not watch. That men's rumble though, I'm gonna put my I'm so ready for it. Like I said, I'm just pumped for Rumble, man. This 2 weeks just kill you. Then you got Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You got Friday, Saturday, Monday next week, and then you get to Friday night next week. It's like, oh,
It's
you're
there.
so close. I can touch it.
With that said, I'll pose to you guys, are you ready to rumble? Next week, our topic will be all rumble based. And the question I'm asking to you is, what's your favorite rumble memories? Next week, our show will be completely themed around rumbles. Rumbles of the past, present, predictions, and a little bit of stats to go with it.
And there may be some spoilers I'm bringing up to you guys next week. I'm going to keep an eye on that. But
Heavy rumor mills. So
that's me.
We're talking predictions. We're talking spoilers. We're talking rumors. But the question that I got to ask in preparation, favorite Rumble memories. What does that look like? Any sneak peeks for next week, Connor? Any hopes, any dreams, any fears?
I just hope SmackDown has an okay show. I hope Saturday night goes well, and I'm ready for next Saturday. That's all I got, man. I'm telling you, these weeks leading up to it, man, they're killing me. So I'm excited for next Saturday, though. I hope you guys are excited for next week's episode. I'm super excited because we always have this topic every year. Our Rumble predictions. We used to do it. I used to text in my place. All right, this is what's gonna happen, and now it's gonna be video evidence of who we pick. So we're not gonna be able to. Oh, I didn't say that because no, we said it.
And we'll have to have a predictions champion.
Yep.
Yeah. Next time on KTE, the Rumble Podcast. But coming up later this week, our first episode of WWECW.
Oh.
KTE goes to the extreme.
All right.
One Night Stand 2005 is going to be our first topic, and we'll be talking about ECW memories. So, in addition to your favorite Rumbles, comment below about your favorite ECW memories. Not just WWE ECW, but ECW memories. Look for that later on this week. And until next time, we'll see you on the KTE Wrestling Podcast.